Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Friday marks the final day of the OSCE summit in Malta, where discussions have centered on addressing regional security challenges. Malta's Deputy Prime Minister emphasized that only diplomacy and politics can resolve Europe's pressing security issues. The summit focused on leveraging the OSCE's resources to alleviate the humanitarian impact of Russia's war in Ukraine. Chairman in office Ian Borg led intensive negotiations aimed at advancing gender equality and strengthening youth development within the organization. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's appearance sparked some controversy at the event. Friday's meetings are set to begin at 11 a.m. Central European Time with a closed plenary session followed by statements from heads of delegations and the adoption of key Ministerial Council documents and decisions.
We have the experience and the expertise.
Poland's foreign minister has called for Russia to be expelled from the United Nations Security Council and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The stance will persist as long as Russian troops remain in Ukraine. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Diamond, reports from Malta.
It's been a dramatic 24 hours in Malta at the 31st OSCE Ministerial Council meeting. Remember, delegations from all 57 member states are here, and that includes Russia. And it was clear very early on that Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, his appearance would mean this was anything but smooth sailing. We spoke to foreign ministers as they arrived this morning at the council meeting, and here's what they told us.
I will not be in one room with Mr. Lavrov. I will walk out, yes.
But what signal does it send that we still...
I don't know what signal it sends, but I cannot be in the same room with an aggressor state.
Russia is isolated, yeah.
Do you have any message to Mr. Lavrov and to the...
Get out of Ukraine. That's my message.
We will not allow Putin to bomb our common peace order into dust and ashes, nor will we allow Russia to play its cynical game of undermining the foundational pillars of OSCE uncommented. The OSCE is and will remain a central piece of our European security architecture.
So certainly not a welcome mat for Sergei Lavrov. He did finally arrive, and he arrived late to this Ministerial Council meeting. And of course, as journalists, we wanted to ask him some questions. Here's how that went.
Are you open to peace talks? Mr. Minister, are you open to peace talks?
Absolute radio silence from Mr. Lavrov, but that was no longer the case once he got inside the building. And as he started his address to the delegates, well, some started to get on up and leave. That included Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski and a few other delegates. I spoke exclusively to Minister Sikorski just a few hours later on why he did it, and he went one step further. Here's what he told me.
The organization gets paralyzed. So I personally believe that Russia should be suspended, both in the Security Council and here at the OSCE.
When he talks about the organisation being paralysed, what he means is that for all decisions made by the OSCE, they have to come to a consensus. All 57 member states have to sign off on a decision. That's almost impossible with the likes of Russia and Belarus involved. And so Poland's top diplomat is putting a line in the sand. In Malta, for TVP World, I'm Aaron Diamond.
Moscow has announced the closure of the Polish Consulate in St. Petersburg effective early 2025. The decision is seen as a retaliatory move following Poland's closure of the Russian consulate in Poznan last month. Russia had no right to make this decision, stated Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski during the 31st OSCE ministerial meeting in Malta.
According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, the Polish Consulate in St. Petersburg will close on January 10, 2025.
In accordance with the principle of reciprocity, 3 diplomatic employees of the Consulate General of Poland in St. Petersburg have been declared persona non grata and must leave the territory of Russia by the specified date.
Russia didn't really have the right for this, to this retaliation.
This move comes in response to Poland closing down a Russian consulate in Poznan last week.
I took the decision to close down the Russian consulate in Poznan as a sign of our displeasure and outrage at the Russian campaign of arsons in Poland and beyond.
The Polish Foreign Ministry has previously limited the areas of Poland where Russian diplomats are allowed to travel. Sikorski called the decision to close the Poznan consulate down a warning.
We know what you're doing. We have proof that you're doing it. Stop doing it. And if you don't, we'll take further action.
Sikorski has a precise idea of what that might be.
And if acts of diversion and terrorism continue, I will close down the rest of Russian consular presence in Poland.
For now, it remains unclear whether Poland will take any action in response to the closure of the St. Petersburg consulate.
TVP World welcomed an expert from the Center for European Policy Analysis to discuss the ongoing war in Ukraine. The discussion focused on strategies to end the conflict, Ukraine's potential NATO membership, and the far-reaching implications of such a move.
I think that the key is not only stopping the fighting, which I think is doable, and I think Putin may be ready to stop fighting, but the key is going to be making this a permanent peace. How do you prevent Putin from attacking again? And there I see the only thing that would work is NATO membership. Other security assurances have never been convincing to Putin.
Protests in Georgia are escalating, with police ramping up crackdowns on opposition leaders. On Wednesday, a key figure in the Coalition for Change was knocked unconscious and detained by law enforcement. Our correspondent, Don Arleth, reports from Tbilisi.
The ninth night of protests here in Tbilisi continue, and as you can see and hear behind me are tens of thousands of people that have gathered in front of the Parliament building yet again to demand new elections, the proper direction, which according to them is the European Union. This comes on the heels of yesterday's brutal police detainment of one of the leaders for the Coalition for Change. That individual is still being detained by police. We've had an update on the situation. He will be held between 3 and 15 days. He could be held up to 15 days without charges. Now, we talked to some of the opposition members at yesterday's emergency meeting on the news that of this brutal detainment, and they told us exactly what they want from the international community. Take a listen.
We won the elections. The four political families of the opposition, the four coalitions, actually got more votes than the Georgian Dream government did. So they are not a legitimate government. They don't have any domestic or international recognition. It is a regime that is crumbling. So now we're calling for more sanctions. We're calling for more proactive actions from all the Western partners, from the EU, as well as from the United States of America. We need the international community to stand with the Georgian people in words as well as in deeds. We need Europe and America to act.
Now, Lithuania has already put sanctions on some of the members of the Georgian Dream Party. This, the opposition says, is crucial to breaking up the ruling coalition and potentially getting new elections, which is what all these protesters are demanding. Earlier, Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski also spoke on the issue when he was at the OSCE ministerial meeting in Malta.
The gap between the previously reliable polls and exit polls and the announced election results was alarmingly large. We know that there was fraud, especially outside Tbilisi.
Now, in the meantime, people are going to continue to gather here and rally in support to have new elections that are both free and fair. They want to have the direction towards the European Union, not towards Russia. And that is exactly why everyone is coming out on the streets here in Georgia. Reporting from Tbilisi, Don Arleth, TVP World.
French President Emmanuel Macron is set to appoint a new prime minister in the coming days. The appointee's top priority will be securing parliamentary approval for the 2025 budget. During a Thursday evening address, Macron announced plans to implement a special law to extend the 2024 budget, ensuring continuity and preventing any financial gaps in mid-December. President Macron, who called a snap election in June, resulting in a divided parliament, denied responsibility for the current political crisis. In his televised statement, Macron accused far-right and far-left parties of forming what he termed an anti-Republican front. He emphasized that the next government should include representatives from across the political spectrum. Meanwhile, Michel Barnier, who served as prime minister for just 3 months, have become the shortest-serving leader in modern French history. He was ousted over his fiscal policies. In the wake of Calin Georgescu's success in Romania's first round of presidential elections, the European Parliament has initiated discussions on potentially banning the TikTok platform. Our correspondent, Angela Skuyens, has the story from Brussels.
The European Commission has ordered Chinese-based social media platform TikTok to retain all information related to EU elections and discourse for a 4-month period. It comes after critics suggest that the social media platform was ripe for manipulation at the recent Romanian elections, where the far-right candidate Calin Georgescu stormed the polls. Now, this order spans from the 24th of November, which is roughly 6 days before that first round of elections in Romania, to the 31st of March. Now, the European Commission has said that it has no position on whether any impropriety occurred, but it said that it will collect this information and in case it will open an investigation. Now, TikTok has defended its practices with representatives in Brussels on Tuesday talking to angry MEPs and Brussels representatives saying that it had actually taken down at least 3 disinformation campaigns related to the election in Romania. Now, officials in Romania have also suggested that Russian interference is potentially behind some of the activity as well. Now, we have digital services officials also meeting in Brussels next week to discuss the Digital Services Act and whether anything else needs to be implemented to ensure that Europeans get their fair and free elections. This is Angela Skujins in Brussels for TVP World.
Thousands of pro-European Romanians gathered in Bucharest on Thursday night, waving EU flags in anticipation of this weekend's presidential election. Protesters expressed fears that the center-right candidate, Elena Lasconi, may lose to far-right contender Calin Georgescu, a critic of NATO and the EU, in Sunday's vote. Georgescu, previously little known, surged ahead in the first round of the election, driven by a highly successful TikTok campaign. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Romanian intelligence agencies have hinted that his rapid rise might have been aided by a foreign influence campaign, though Moscow has denied any involvement. The leader of South Korea's ruling party has called for the suspension of President Yoon Suk-yeol's constitutional powers following his introduction of martial law earlier this week. South Korean prosecutors, in collaboration with the military, are set to investigate Yoon's emergency declaration. This move has sparked widespread protests demanding his resignation, while opposition politicians are advocating for impeachment proceedings. The ruling party's leader's shift in stance increases the likelihood of impeachment. On Tuesday, Yoon granted the military extensive powers to address what he described as anti-state forces. However, he rescinded the declaration 6 hours after Parliament voted to oppose it. The Polish Parliament has voted to strip Zbigniew Ziobro of his immunity. The former justice minister had refused to testify before a parliamentary committee, prompting the ruling coalition to push to force his appearance. The ruling coalition approved the measure while opposition's party opposed it. Ziobro can now be compelled to attend the hearings by police escort. The parliamentary committee that summoned the former minister is investigating the use of the Pegasus spyware by Polish security services under the former administration. Ziobro has been justifying his boycott by referencing a Poland's Supreme Court ruling declaring the committee's actions as unconstitutional. And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.